Welcome to the stream. Thanks for coming and joining me. It's going to be the second episode of what we're calling the Write with Light, We Write with Light series. Kind of a tentative title. That's what I've been titling these. This one I use Roman numerals for the two. Don't know if that's going to remain a constant or if we're going to change the titling on that. Don't get me started on trying to find names for things. As a photographer, one thing you might have noticed is how many images that photographers have that they have as untitled images. You'll notice a lot of the photographs in a person's collection are going to end up being untitled, and for me, that makes me think that they have a lot of trouble naming things too, because sometimes it's just hard to name things, and you put a name on something, it's kind of like putting a label on it and kind of becomes its own thing. So choosing how to name something, it's important to a creative like me. If you're a creative and you deal with that issue as well, I'm right there with you. So, but this is the second episode in that series. It's Thursday, June 3rd, just past 10:30 p.m. on the west coast of the United States. I'm in California. I'm on Pacific time. And I hope you are all having a great night. I hope you had a great day. I hope you're ready to check out some artwork. Watch some artwork become real. Getting it ready to share. It's gonna be it's a pretty simple shoot today that we're working with. It's gonna be the first in the landscape collection. This is a landscape image. This is the first landscape image, if you want to call it a landscape. I guess it's considered a landscape. It's in portrait orientation, I'll tell you that much. And it's the first in that series. We did part of what I'm calling the Dark Shines series, which is the stargazing, starry night photography. We did some of the Night Shift series, which is construction on the freeways here in California at night. I have a whole body of work dealing with that. And this is going to be the first in our landscape collection, which again, tentatively titled. Again, I won't go into the rant about how hard it is to title things for a creative, but for me, it's really hard to title things. So all these titles, all these names, subject to change and at my discretion and my leisure. But if anybody has suggestions for titles, always happy to take that into consideration. This is a collaborative effort. The reason I do this, it's just a lot of fun to hear what other people have to say about the work. You get to hear my experiences a little bit more detailed about the shoot itself. Ask questions if you want about how it was shot, and get your voice heard if you have an opinion and how you want these things. I'm going to ask questions about the way I'm editing it and different choices I can make, and sometimes I'm going to put that to a vote. If you want to think of it as a vote, it's not really going to be a vote. A lot of the time, okay, I'll be honest, I'm going to have a lot of these decisions probably preemptively decided, and I might not. No one might not sway me. You're not going to be able to sway my decision that I've already made, but sometimes you will. I am going to listen. That's the whole purpose of this. But it is my artwork after all, so you kind of have to just accept it. And if you don't, that's okay too. Subjective, all subjective. You're going to hear me talk a lot about how subjective a lot of this stuff is that you're going over. Art is such a subjective thing. So anyway, got a beautiful shot of the moon rising up or going down. I wish I could tell you which is which. I probably should have looked that up. I could have looked it up, the date and the time, and easily found out when the moonrise and set was, but I didn't do that. Actually, it's a good thing to remember for the next stream. I do like throwing out that kind of information. We do have some more information on this one than usual, though. You might notice these little maps in the bridge. We're in Adobe Bridge right now. And you might notice these maps. That's a little info for you. I love maps, personally. I wouldn't say I'm a cartographer, but I do like maps, and I like drawing them, and I love maps in general. So Anyway, just to give you guys an idea of where I was and what we're looking at in this image, this was taken at a small park in Malibu, California, called Malibu Bluffs Park. It's right here. I probably could have gotten it closer. I was debating how many different map images I wanted to actually provide for people to look at. But anyway, up here in the top of the map, this is PCH, Pepperdine University. And there's a small park right here, just at the beach or above the beach, called Malibu Bluffs Park. And I'm photographing from that park looking across the Pacific Ocean here. And the little bit of land that we see in the image is actually a part of Rancho Palos Verdes, this area of California. And to give you a little closer, wait, no, this is the wide shot. I'm sorry. I forgot which one of those was the wide and the close up, but we have Malibu, California over here. I'm just looking across to Rancho Palos Verdes right over here, with the moon in the frame, either rising or setting. Again, that's a good piece of information I should probably try to keep in mind for the next stream. I'll try to have that kind of cool stuff. This image was taken a long time ago. This was in August of 2009, almost the end of August 30th, 2009. And I don't have a good camera. I'm pretty bad with my camera logging, in terms of keeping track of all the information. Back when we used to shoot film photography, it was a little bit more important to keep track of a lot of the data that you were using, or the parameters that you have the camera set to, the film stock you're using, position of the camera, time of day, all that kind of stuff. You would have to write that stuff down manually. And now, as the era of digital, I'm opening up this to show you the data that you get. You get all that kind of data over here, in the metadata is all saved. So you have like your aperture that you shot at, your shutter speed, ISO, all that good stuff, what camera you used, which obviously it's digital, so there's not really a film stock used, but all that's already logged. So it kind of made me lazy about logging all that kind of information. So I will try to look up things that I can actually determine, like that are that can clearly be defined, whether this is moonrise or moonset. I can find that out pretty easily by looking up the date and the lunar calendar and all that. So I'll do that for next time. Good thing to keep in mind. And let's get rid of those maps. We're done with those maps. That was just, again, to give you an idea of where we're shooting from and what we're looking at. In my mind, it's easy to think that that's an island you're looking at, which, in all honesty, many times in my life, have I looked across from Malibu and seen Rancho Palos Verdes and just assumed that it was an island like Catalina or Santa Barbara Island, which are in the same-ish vicinity. And because of the cloud cover, you can't see how it's connected to the rest of California. So it looks like an island, but it's not. And we only have 3 exposures of this composition. And I'll point out, I'm a very choosy type shooter. I'm going to say that. You'll probably hear me say that a lot on this stream when I'm talking about my photography. I'm a real choosy guy. I don't just shoot everything, 100 times. I snap a couple shots. I take my time to compose, to make sure I'm really saying what I want to say with the image, with the way I have it composed and the way I have it framed. And I shoot a couple photos, and then usually, I just kind of edit while I'm shooting. I don't need to shoot 100 different photos. I know what I want, and I know how I want it to look. So I'm very good at making those decisions while I'm shooting. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people are more heavy shooters. They're going to shoot a lot because maybe you don't know how you want that scene to be displayed, or how it's going to read to you when you get back and you're reviewing. And so it's good to be safe, in that regard for a lot of people. But that's not my way. And that's fine. I'm doing my own artwork, so who cares? When I'm shooting professionally, depending on the type of shoot and the situation, obviously I'll probably err on the side of shooting a little bit more. But personally, I'm a very, very choosy shooter, and back when we were shooting film, I shot a lot of 4x5 film, sheet film, and I'll probably do a talk about that. I won't get into too many details, but shooting film, especially 4x5 large format film, and the way I shot, it's a very slow process. Very slow process. You really have to be choosy about how you shoot. You have to be careful about how you're going to compose the scene. And I love that. I love really, getting down and making sure I'm, talking or saying what I feel about this presented scene. I like making those decisions and figuring that out while I'm shooting. It's a fun part of the creative process instead of trying to determine that later, which a lot of people are going to do. Again, if you shoot a lot and then you try to build the storyline, I guess, if you want to put it that way. So anyway, I only have 3 exposures of this image, and then obviously I was happy with what I got. So we can narrow this down pretty easily. Our first shot is a little underexposed. So we're going to get rid of that one right off the bat. You don't want to have to boost the exposure if you don't have to. I try to shoot and maintain about 90% of the final image with what I've captured. And there's some instances where that might not be true. I won't get into exposing to protect highlights, which is a whole can of worms. Everything in photography with me is going to be a whole can of worms. So I try not to go on too many tangents, but also this is what we're here for. We're here to talk about photography. And if you guys have any questions about photography, obviously happy during any of these. Eventually, I'm going to start saying on the episode list, or at least when I'm here on Twitch, probably do streams that are just talking about photography, fielding questions, things like that. That'll probably end up being days, because that's fun. I love giving people advice about photography, photo gear, stuff like that. So we'll get into that. So our one underexposed image is gone because, again, we want to do as little correction as possible, and having to brighten that image actually can be detrimental to the image quality. So we got rid of that one, easy breezy. Now these two are very similar, slightly different composition. One has Rancho Palos Verdes kind of center punched. The other has Rancho Palos Verdes just slightly off to the side. And obviously the moon shifts in relation in the same direction in that frame. And it's actually, I'm probably going to crop either one of these. I'm going to crop probably a little bit. It feels a little unbalanced to me. Open those worms. I know. I got worms. It's a worm farm. Yeah, I don't want to get into protecting highlight exposure. Another thing, just to be clear, I'm going to try to say this. I actually put this on my checklist of things I have to say each episode. This is not a tutorial. I do not consider these tutorials. You can obviously follow along with what I'm doing, but I'm making personal decisions about the creative choices of these images, and you can't really teach that to people. I mean, obviously people can emulate the way you shoot and whatever, but I'm never doing these trying to say you have to do them this way or this is how it should be done. Nothing like that. And then when I'm getting into actually working in Photoshop, also, these are not Photoshop tutorials. That's why it doesn't say Photoshop tutorial. The main purpose of these is to witness the creative process and to see and hear about my feelings about the photos, how I took them, why I took them, all that kind of stuff. So do not look at this like I'm trying to tell you what to do. That's just the bottom line. I'm not trying to show you how to do things, just merely hanging out and showing you guys my process, letting you guys be a part of the process, because that's really fun. So let's see, which one of these two, composition-wise, I think I like the one because there's with Rancho Palos Verdes, our little landmass there popping out of the haze, which we're going to do something about that haze, don't worry. When it's center punched like that, it feels very lopsided to me. Like it's too much on the right side of the frame, too much blank space on the left side of the frame. And I think with Rancho Palos Verdes, with the landmass, off, just off to the side, a little bit more from the center line of the frame, and with the moon again just to the right of the center line of the frame. I think that creates a much better balance in the image. So I'm gonna go ahead, unless you guys have a different opinion about it that you would like to voice. I can almost tell you right away. I'm gonna choose the one where they're both closer to, or they're both composed closer to the center of the frame rather than both of them off to one side. So yes, let's get rid of this one. Let's get rid of the one, again, they're composed a little bit too far to the right. So this is going to be our baby, our go-to image. So let's open that up. We're going to do all the work, most of the work here in Adobe Camera Raw. If you use Lightroom, a lot of these sliders are going to be very similar, by the way, in Lightroom and Adobe Camera Raw. They share a lot of the same. I mean, it's all Adobe. I always look at Lightroom is almost like Adobe Bridge plus Adobe Camera Raw plus Photoshop kind of combined, I guess, is kind of how I always looked at it. You have your file organization, file browsing with Bridge is how I do it, and editing in Adobe Camera Raw and Adobe Photoshop, whereas with Lightroom, you kind of have that Adobe Bridge file management as well as the editing. First of all, raw editing, and then also a little bit of localized adjustments, things like that you can do in Lightroom. But I've never gotten into Lightroom. I'll probably get into it at some point eventually. It was a really it was a crazy program to run on some of my old computers. It used to be really slow. Okay, so the first thing I notice that really bugs me is going to be a lot of this dust. These are these dark areas, these dark dots, these dark spots in the frame. That's actually dust on the sensor. Some tech specs. This was shot with a Nikon D700. Great camera, dude. I'm probably do a whole video on that camera. And its big brother, the Nikon D3. Ooh, just such big cameras for so many reasons. Another can of worms, dude. This is not a tech review right now, although I do plan on doing tech reviews. Look at this. I think that's a plane. Is that a plane right there? Is either a plane or a bird? Looks like a plane to me. I think that's a plane. That makeup of 10 pixels is a plane. Pretty amazing resolving power. This is only a 12 megapixel camera, and I'm pretty blown away sometimes with these, with the detail that I can see even in these like lower resolution images. 12 megapixels is plenty for most people. That's why that's Apple still uses a 12 megapixel sensor on their phone cameras, or at least most of them, or all of them. I could be wrong. Ugh. Depending on when you're watching this, of course. So these are just the first thing that just stand out as just so disgusting. Dust spots on the sensor. Anyway, this camera, the D700, did not have a dust removal feature. So there was no way, if you had dust on your sensor, it always got planted in the image. And you'd have to remove it later, like the way I'm doing it now, where I'm just literally manually selecting each dot. And then I'm going to tell it to use a different spot of the image to replace that spot with. And I'm not going to do all these. This is kind of a tedious process, and I'm probably going to miss some because I would go over this image like 100 times. And I'm going to adjust the exposure because there's a way to make these stand out a little bit better. But I'll probably miss some right now. So if you see some and I miss them, don't worry about it. I'm going to try to go over it. Although you're welcome to tell me, obviously. But I'm not going to, I'm just short demos, just get rid of the really obvious ones that are going to really stand out and bug me. It just makes the frame look so dirty. Such a dirty frame. And what I do to make these a little bit more visible, at least I think it makes them more visible, is increasing contrast, and then there's a certain exposure level that they really start to stand out a lot more against these like single tone like this in the blue sky. Yeah, contrast definitely helps. And then there's certain exposure level they become more obvious to my eye at least, and it seems to be a lower exposure. Once they're bright enough, they seem to blend into the surrounding tone pretty quickly. And I will be putting this on a white border, so I'm gonna use the white backdrop so that I'm actually viewing it similar to how it will be viewed when it's finalized. I generally will edit on a gray backdrop. That is probably the most preferred in terms of a color accurate representation. But because I know that I'm going to actually put this on a white border, I don't need to edit on the gray because I know that it ends up looking very different on a white border once I put it on there. So I'm just going to start with the white border so that I can adjust the exposure and contrast to how it's actually going to be viewed when it's finalized. Look, boss. Thank you, John. Again, if you are just joining, we're just removing the dust that was on the sensor. Really quick, go once over. I'm probably going to miss some. You're welcome to tell me if I do miss any, but I'm not worried about missing all of them. I'm going to go over this one more time. And the reason I'm definitely going to go over this again, by the way, is this is going to be the first image that I'm using as a giveaway. So take a second here to plug my Patreon page. If you go to my Patreon, which is Paul Mossy Hanton, same as my handle on Twitch here, patrons do get early access to content, bonus content, really cool stuff. I'm going to throw a lot of cool stuff. I'm just getting started out, so there's a lot of it's a work in progress. But the first big thing I'm going to do for my patrons is this image is actually going to get printed. One of the last things we're going to do is I'm going to show you how I'm going to get this printed. And one of my lucky patrons, it does get a print of this image for their own personal use. And that's going to be one thing I'm going to try to offer is the free prints, cool stuff that I can give you guys for helping me out, because I really appreciate all the support. And so this is the least I can do. So this is going to be my first giveaway. Again, if you are a patron, you're entered into the raffle. So if you want to support, if you like this content and you want to support this channel and you want to support my show, check out the Patreon. Again, Paul Mossy Hanton. But just being here, watching is a big help. And if you are new to my stream, please follow my stream. It really helps me out. I'm trying to make it to 50 followers. It's kind of a big hurdle in the Twitch game, reaching that 50 follower hurdle. So really appreciate a follow if you guys do like this content again and want to be part of this, part of the fun, part of the process. And I can tell you right now, by the way, I upped the contrast to see those dust spots. And I mean, I was already going to increase the contrast, but adding the contrast to this image made it look a lot better right off the bat. And that has a lot to do with the atmospheric haze that we're seeing in the image, which I am going to do something about. There's a great dehaze slider that makes it just so simple. Let's see. Any other big dust spots? Those are it's like the first thing that I noticed. Now, okay, so there's this plane here. You can't tell it's a plane. And when I get this printed, it's just going to be a black dot. And while if it was like legible as a plane, I'd think it was a cool element in the frame like that. I'd be fine with that. The fact that you're not going to be able to tell what it is when I print this, and it's just going to look like, I don't know if you can see it when I have it on the wide, but I mean, it's just going to look like a dot. It's not going to look good. So as much as it pains me to take out stuff unnaturally like that, again, I try my best. And as a photographer, really, you should try to capture 95%, 95% of the final image should be captured at the moment of capture. And you really just want to be making these slight tweaks that I'm going to be making on these images to really make them come to life, as it were. It's the same process as creating a negative with film. We would create a negative, and then in printing that negative, you can actually change the appearance quite a bit, but that was intentional. You know, the way you expose an image, it can be very different than the way it's actually intended to be displayed, and you are intentionally going to adjust contrast, exposure, and things like that after the fact. But you do want to get it 90% there at the moment of capture so that you don't have to do adjustment. Any adjustment you make is going to affect the final image quality. So the less you have to do, the better it's going to be generally. And again, I don't like taking stuff out, but again, trying to get this 90% there. But I know for a fact that little plane is not going to look good. Yeah, look, boss, the plane. Awesome, dude. I think he was in James. Was James Bond? Yeah, it's James Bond. I know that's not from James Bond, but it's the same actor. Man with the golden gun, right? Am I right? Am I wrong? Check your James Bond facts, bro. Respect. Okay, so I'm pretty sure I got a lot of those dust spots. Again, if you guys notice one, please let me know. I'll take it out. And again, I mean, I think, let's see what that is. Here's another little spot. I'm going to tell you right now, that is definitely a UFO. Definitely alien, proof of alien life. Those 5 pixels, definitely proof. And let's just go ahead and remove that proof. And that's good. It's coming out pretty nice already. Man, I got to clean my monitor. That's what I got to do. If your monitor's dirty, the spots on your monitor start to look like these dust spots, man. I tell ya. Oh, there's one. I see one. Again, these are pretty hard to see. And what's going to really pain me is that I'm going to do all this and then I'll probably get it printed. And then I'll notice one of these errant dust spots that I didn't remove like an idiot. Oh, well. All good. It's all good. Again, I mean, if I leave a dust spot there, I did it intentionally. It's a creative choice. I'm trying to say something, you know? And what else? Okay, so the next thing, immediate. Let's bring our contrast back down just so we can start with our template. Look at the contrast, by the way. Look at the histogram up here in the top right corner. You can just see it's like the flattest thing in the world. All the tones, like everything's huddled up in the middle. No highlights, no shadows. So definitely going to do something about that. That's not bad though. That means that there's nothing clipping and nothing being blocked. So no shadows blocked, no highlights clipped. Muy bueno. Good place to start. Again, lower contrast is not a bad place to start with an image. But if you have too much contrast, that's where we get into some issues. But I'm very, very important to me is holding all the detail in this moon. That's going to be important when I add contrast. So we'll probably have to do a localized adjustment for that to make sure I retain all that information. And the next thing I noticed, the horizon line is just atrocious. Ugh. There's a thing with horizons, by the way, depending on the direction you're facing, a horizon would naturally decline or incline depending on the way you have the image framed. So with a picture like this, the horizon actually might be level here. It's hard for me to tell. But the horizon actually might be level, and it's because this is looking into the distance. So the water level is not going to necessarily look perfectly level with the frame. But if in this instance, if this is level, if this is indeed level, it does look unlevel because of that height change from the left side of the frame to the right side of the frame with the horizon. So I'm gonna correct that. I'm gonna make that level to my eye. Again, it might be level in terms of actual how it was photographed, it might be perfectly level, but the way it looks is very unlevel. So let us correct that. Very easy to do. We're just going to rotate in the geometry until it looks like, yeah, perfect, perfect, perfect. Straight line across the bottom. We'll scale that up. Scaling it up. And then we're good to go. And that cleaned up the horizon. Unlevel horizon just really bothers me. I would say, yeah, that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. What else is standing out? Anything big? Do we see anything big standing? Any more big dust spots? No. That's again. I'm probably gonna continuously check if I see any of those little dust spots. Back to tech specs real quick. I didn't finish those. Nikon D700, Nikon, whatever, D700, ISO 200, 50 millimeter, my 50 millimeter lens. I'm pretty sure it doesn't say. Let's see. I think I would go back into the metadata. It would tell me. I'm pretty damn sure that's the 50 millimeter, 1.8D Nikkor, shot at f8 at 1/320th of a second. Beautiful specs. I love all those specs, those numbers and stuff. Oof, so awesome. I actually debated for a while if I wanted to include, like, on every single one of my images, have those numbers on it, because I love those numbers. And actually, I'm looking at the horizon. I don't like the way. I think I'm gonna back it. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty straight. It's pretty good. It's looking good. I don't know. All right, so let's look at the color. Let's look at the color temperature. It actually came in pretty good. We were almost at exact daylight balance. We were at 5,350 Kelvin. I mean, that looks pretty good. I don't know if I'm going to touch that yet. When I adjust the contrast and saturation a little bit, I might tweak that. You could actually go. I mean, there's the color that I tone this with. That's going to be kind of a preference, again, personal preference thing. I'm going to err on a little bit more magenta for my tint. Let's go 15 for now. Again, that's probably something. I'll probably tweak that. Just getting it in the ballpark. That looks pretty nice. And again, I know we're going to add contrast, so let's just add our contrast. So that's actually, we'll start with 50, and then I'm actually just going to bring the shadows down, bring the whites up. Let's actually do that a lot. Let's do that a lot. There's a lot of haze here, which we will also do our dehazing. Let's give it a tiny bit of a dehaze. Just a little bit. Let's do 15. That is looking nice. The vignette you see, by the way, there's a pretty heavy vignette on the top of the frame and on this bottom corner. That I doubt that is vignette, optical vignette from the lens. At f8, most of the vignette is probably already corrected for on that lens. So this is actually just going to be the natural light fall off as we get up into the atmosphere, further up. And then obviously the right side of the frame is a little bit darker than the left side of the frame, because the sun is actually setting, and it's just darker on that side of the world, on that side of the hemisphere, I guess, and a little bit lighter over here. So I'm actually gonna let's actually do that now. Let's correct that. Just make a localized adjustment to this bottom corner, just slightly, just to bring it back into balance with the rest of them, with the rest of the frame. There we go. Now the exposure's on both sides. Let's bring it down. Actually, we don't need highlights. Let's just bring down the exposure. And then I think because I did that, the overall exposure could probably come up just a little bit. I'm going to expose this. That's going to be a choice as well. I mean, we could do more pastel-like colors, if we wanted to brighten the image and have it more of a pastel or lighter hue or lighter tone gradient in the sky and the colors, or we could deepen it if we wanted to. If we wanted some darker tones, it depends. That's personal choice. I'll probably balance it somewhere in the middle between those two extremes. A more blown out image. I'll probably err on a little bit lighter of a tone. That's going to help us bring out maybe a little bit more details in some of those darker areas. But then also, I think I just prefer a little bit lighter of a tone to my colors in general, or at least sometimes. In this particular case, yes, that's how I feel about it. But different images kind of speak to you in a different way, and so you color and tone them different ways for different situations. That's how I do it, at least. And I do want, I think the space above and on the right side, just a little bit too much, just a tiny bit too much on that side. So let's actually, I'll do that. I'm going to do that I'll do that here. Yeah, we'll do that here. I could do that in Photoshop, but we'll do it here just so we can get as much of that as possible. Look at the moon is almost falling right on that convergent line, top right corner. So that's good. That's good in terms of composition, I guess. If you look at it like that, we'll keep it on that thirds, on that line. Again, these lines represent, dividing the image into thirds. If you want to look up the rule of thirds, go ahead. But we break rules, even though we're almost adhering to them perfectly right now. For a landscape image, the rule of thirds would probably dictate that the horizon line falls also on one of these third segmented areas, because you want, ideally, and this is, again, totally subjective, but if you have a horizon splitting the image right down the middle, it is said to be a little harder to focus on one, like it doesn't feel balanced, I guess, is the way most people would say it. So typically you would compose your horizon on one of these lines as well for landscapes. But that's, again, don't have to follow. It's just silly rules, man. Here, again, I liked this horizon line riding the very bottom of the edge of the frame. I wanted this beautiful gradient in the sky, and to emphasize the space the moon has up here, I think. And then just, again, that gradient, that color gradient. This image is really about, and honestly, very colorful. The color is a huge impact to this image. I shoot a lot of black and white, so working in color can feel very liberating sometimes, I guess. Not liberating, I don't know, that doesn't sound right. It's different. Let's put it that way. It's different. And typically, I'll let the scene dictate itself. Obviously, if I shoot a photo or I'm looking at a structure or something like that, and the image is more about the geometry and more about the contrast and the structure itself, that can work really well with black and white, where an image like this, there's not much geometry going on. The biggest draw to this image is really going to be those color tones and that color gradient, that beautiful sunset color gradient. That's what this is all about. And I also really love celestial bodies in other works, whether it's architecture, landscape, portrait, whatever. Celestial bodies in the frame, just awesome. So I think that crop, by the way, feels much more balanced, unless y'all think something different. But that feels a lot more balanced. We cropped. Actually, I'm going to push The whole point was to push the moon off a little bit to the side, a little bit off to the side, just a tiny bit more. So let's actually move that just off a little bit more. And then that feels like a really much more well-balanced frame, in my opinion. But I'd love to know your opinion too. Which, by the way, if this is not a live, if you're viewing this on the YouTube page where all these are going to go, all these are going to end up on my YouTube page, same handle, Paul Mussey Hanton. If you're viewing this later, please leave, please comment. Please let me know what you think. Tell me what you would have done different. Tell me how you would have shot this different. I love hearing that kind of stuff. If you, think I should say Nikon instead of Nikon, let me know. Dude, we'll do like a contest. Japanese pronunciation is Nikon. Nikon is not, but Nikon themselves have said they don't care how you pronounce it. Any way you pronounce it is correct. And I love that sentiment, by the way. There's no right or wrong way to pronounce it, man. You pronounce it your way. You do your thing. It is Pride Month, by the way. And doing your own thing and being yourself is, I believe that is a big part of what Pride is all about. Being proud of who you are and your taste in art and your taste in color and your taste in composition, all that stuff. You should be proud of the way you feel about it. Don't let other people make you feel bad about who you are. Bottom line. So this is looking pretty sweet. I don't like, it's a little low contrast, and maybe that's not that big of a deal down here. I love how there's like kind of like this wispy lines going through, dividing up. As much as I know that this is like terrible smog from our polluted country, it also looks kind of cool. Smog it up, I guess. Don't. Please take care of the environment. Please. Hello, please. So let's dehaze that just a little bit more. Actually, no, here, what we're going to do. First of all, let's check. I don't think I've done selective dehazing. We did selective noise reduction on one of the first streams because I hadn't done that. Let's see, is haze? Yeah, dehaze is a sweet. It used to be, they've opened up quite a few of the options in these selective adjustments, at least in Adobe Camera Raw. Obviously in Photoshop, you can select anything, anywhere, anytime, and adjust anything about that selection almost. But Adobe Camera Raw usually is a little less intense in terms of how many options you have. So I wasn't sure. Again, I don't think I've ever done selective dehazing. So anyway, we're going to select just the bottom bit of the frame here because that's where all our smoggy haze is, and that we don't need an exposure adjustment on it. Make sure nothing else is noise reduction. So we have noise reduction all the way on. No thanks. I probably wouldn't have noticed if that whole area got noise reduction and the rest. Actually, I definitely would have because the grain structure changes quite a bit depending on the noise reduction. And so you do really want the noise reduction to really maintain consistency so that the grain remains similar throughout the frame. And if you do a lot of heavy noise reduction and you take out all the detail, it's a good idea to add a little bit of grain back so it looks a little more natural. At least that's my process. Okay, so let's put the mask on so we see what area we're affecting. Again, it's just this bottom half, but we can confiscate it, take it away a little bit from the top. Just a little bit more taken away from there. Just a little bit. And just hit that, take our mask off so we can see what we're doing, and dehaze. Dehazing. Which dehaze, it just basically adds contrast. I'm sure it's not as simple as that. I'm sure behind the scenes, but it also, I think it's putting a little bit too much heavy exposure adjustment on the darker tones. So I'm going to also boost the shadows to kind of correct for that while also maintaining a little bit more of that reduction in haze. I think we went a little too far with it. Let's do 25. Still opening up, keeping the shadows just a little open. What's crazy, I was talking earlier about the detail you can get out of 12 megapixels. It is a 12 megapixel image, and I can definitely clearly see. Okay, clearly. You can see the buildings, in this. This is again Rancho Palos Verdes. Um, you can see those buildings, and that's pretty incredible that these aren't smudged into just nothingness. I can see clear, differentiated buildings along this, which is pretty incredible. 12 megapixels, man. It's when 12 megapixels was like huge back in the day. Oh my goodness. Which exciting news, dude. I just got my Canon R5. My R5 arrives tomorrow. Highest resolution camera I've ever owned. I've shot a lot with the Canon 5DS and the Sony A7R. So you probably shot most with the A7R Mark II. Both amazing cameras. Sony is pretty baller in terms of their image quality these days. I don't know when you're going to watch this, so that could change. Anyway, Canon, the R5 is awesome. I can't wait to show you guys images I get with it. It's going to be very exciting times. Dude, that looks pretty good, man. I think if anything, dehazing it like that kind of pushed it a little bit into the too dark overall. So let's brighten the exposure again just a little bit. Bring us back into that tonality we want. I think even maybe a tiny bit more. And then because we're doing that, let's make sure, again, moon having as much detail as possible, very important to me. So let's put a local adjustment on the moon so that we're maintaining all the detail there. Mask it. And I might get into, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take the feathering down because this is a hard-edged object that we know we want to maintain the color or the contrast and the exposure of. So I do want that edge to be very well defined so that you don't see the exposure effect haloing the way I had it. It would have been feathered in such a way that whoops, no. Would have been feathered in a way that you would definitely have noticed. Although, hang on, that was for my positives, my additive. Let's take down the feathering on that subtractive adjustment. Get really down into the nitty-gritty of this one. I think if I'm remembering correctly, one of the first times I processed this image, I'm pretty sure what I had done, instead of making a local adjustment, I had created two edits of the exposure of this image, and I think I just basically just cut and pasted the correctly exposed moon on top of the overexposed moon, and that's a same way I've done HDR or high dynamic range photography before the automated processes were better and before I was good at doing selective processing, I guess. Okay, so then we don't need dehaze on that. We don't need shadow boost. All we wanted to do was maybe just highlight reduction. Bring back a little bit of the tone, a little bit of that tone that we have, or a little bit of those details in the moon. Just a little bit. Gonna be hard to see that. It's going to be hard to see that in the digital image, but on the print, I can tell you that you will be able to notice either the lack of detail or detail in that image. And again, this is going to print. If you missed it, this image is going to be a giveaway to one of my patrons gets a print of this image. So we will be looking at this as a final image for print, not for necessarily just digital display, which again, in a wide shot, this is going to be, I'm going to post this on Instagram, and it's going to be like this big or something like that. probably not, in all honesty, not a good image for Instagram in that regard. I mean, it doesn't read well. But for a print, for a nice 8x10 or 11x14, it's gonna read a lot better. But just the color tone is pretty cool in that image, I must say. Let's just do a little bit. Let's just adjust that. I can see the rim. You can kind of see where it's the exposure on the outside rim of the moon is getting just a little blown out. So we're gonna add that back. Just slightly. And it's probably hard to tell if I'm doing anything on your end. These adjustments are sometimes so minute. It'd probably be tough to see the effect that it's making. But again, essentially, we're just trying to reduce the contrast or reduce the exposure on the moon so that we retain detail. You want to see that face. You want to see that face on the moon. I used to love, when I was a kid, I used to just look at the moon. Didn't have a telescope. We had binoculars. Use binoculars. Yeah, my R5. Assume you'll be adding the lens flare. Yeah, we're going to add, the last thing I do on any image is just add as much lens flare as possible. Whoops. I accidentally opened that. That's fine. We're getting pretty close. We're getting pretty close to the end. Don't worry. After you, every adjustment you make in Adobe Camera Raw, as long as you hit done or open, it should apply that and save those parameters that you have set. And I'm thinking, again, the color tone, what I want to do, I think it's just that bottom half is actually getting, because of that dehazing we did. One thing I'm also going to constantly bring up is making these adjustments. The way I end up working is I make an adjustment. Making one adjustment might mean going back and making a readjustment to something you already adjusted. That's a very natural part of my process, at least. So let's keep the dehazing on, but let's actually just increase the overall exposure, that bottom half. It just was starting to feel a little bit too dark down there, I want to say. Overall. Again, it's really, this color gradient is just absolutely gorgeous to me. Color gradients in general, you'll notice color gradients are a pretty heavy design choice, very heavy design choice that a lot of artists will use in their work. And I'm gonna, now looking at it, I can tell it could warm up. We can warm up the image just a little bit. I'm gonna go 5500 Kelvin. Or actually, what I do again, I kind of pump. I pump the slider and kind of watch the way it changes as I'm pumping it. Pump, 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 pump it up. And what I'd be going for is just what I think is the best color temperature that emphasizes that gradient the best. And so I like it a little warmer. The warmer we go, the more of a gradient there actually, or at least the more of a gradient from that orange glow of the sunset, which is, again, it's just basically smog. But it's not, it's like atmosphere. It's wispy clouds. It's fog. It's good stuff. It is not harmful, toxic, anything, of course. But anyway, adding a little bit more warmth seems to increase the level of the gradient between that orange area and the cooler area above. So I'm going to go, I think 5500K is good. That should be almost exactly daylight, which, by the way, color temperature, things like elevation, the elevation you are at, on the earth can affect the color temperature of the image, or the correct color temperature of the image. Again, also very subjective, but in terms of it being perfectly daylight balance color is different depending on the altitude you're at, and obviously time of day, things like that. But I like this at 55. 55 looks good to me. And then tint. The tint looked fine. I don't think. Let's see. Whoops. Yeah, tint looked okay. What were we at? We're at 15. I think it can stay there. And let's see, zooming out, I think that bottom left, in fact, it almost looks like the full left side. Let's do this. Let's go back into our local adjustments. Let's grab this left side vignette that we added. Again, that was just a balance because the exposure is naturally changing lighter on the left side to the darker on the right side. I'm just balancing that out by adding the vignette, increasing the vignette on the left side here just a little bit. And let's actually bring that, looking at it now, it actually looks like, and I'm going to increase my hardness on my brush again. I'm actually going to add that vignette effect to almost the full left side of the frame, because I saw in the sky, I could tell that it was falling off a little bit on the left side as well. So bringing that up, and then again bringing it down to match the exposure. That looks a lot better. Maybe one more bump. I'll do a little bump. Very nice. Yeah. That's very pretty. I want to say, I really love that. Going back into this image, I will admit, I thought this was Catalina Island for a second. I was like, oh, it's such a sweet shot of Catalina with the moon over it. Not Catalina, Paul. Although I do love Catalina quite a bit. I love Catalina, and I have photos from Catalina and of Catalina that I have shared and will share more of. But this is not Catalina. That's Rancho Palos Verdes, my friend. Beautiful, though. Beautiful scene. What else are we seeing? Anybody else see anything? Anything else jumping out at anybody that is just not right? And the next thing we're going to do is add a shark with machine guns strapped to its head jumping out of the water and fighting a giant mechanized flying eagle. I actually do want to do goofy Photoshop stuff like that at some point, just for fun, maybe on the weekends or something. Just adding random stuff to images. That could be fun. There's this guy, I should know his name, and just really quickly, he takes photos of cats playing with toys and stuff. And he crops out the toy from the frame, and the way that the cats look, it makes it look like they're doing kung fu. And he has this whole series of like cats doing kung fu and fighting each other when they're not really fighting. I mean, they're just playing with a toy. And I actually don't know if he combines the two cats into one image or if he just gets both of them in a perfect pose to make it look like they're fighting. But it's really cool stuff. So I'm pretty happy with that. We're also getting to our 1 hour of editing mark. One of my goals in editing any picture, here's a dot. One of my goals is to really take, 1 hour of photo editing, I think is already pretty excessive. Again, and I'm taking a lot longer because I stop and I explain stuff to you guys. But um, 1 hour of editing is kind of like that starts to feel excessive to me. And again, if you're really trying to get the image 90% there, you're trying to get 90%, 95%. I mean, as close to 100% as possible, but to a certain extent, it's very difficult to get an image 100% in camera, which is a challenge. I have a whole lot I can say about that. Shooting straight out of camera JPEG and getting them perfect is a challenge. If you're not, at least for me, if I'm not tied to a computer, tethered to a computer, have 100% control over the image, the light, all that stuff. In a studio, much easier to do than um, shooting a landscape, something that there's very little control over what's happening in your frame and the lighting, contrast ratios, all that. Hard to maintain a 100% finished image. And you know what? I actually, now that I'm looking at, I think we went a little too far in the left side vignette. Again, the way I edit, I will edit something and I'm going to go back and adjust it and edit something else, and then go back and adjust something else. Totally fine. That's just, that it's the Rubik's Cube, of editing, both video and photography. I was explaining, I have this music video that I shot and directed that should be coming out soon. And the way we edited it, it's a very interesting process. I'm going to do a whole making of video for that music video that we did, because it's it was a very intense, very technically intensive shoot. And it's pretty interesting from a technical standpoint and a creative standpoint. So I do plan on doing a little video about that at some point. But when we were editing that, I was explaining to the artist about how the editing process is so much like a Rubik's Cube, because like you edit one little thing and then something else has to be edited, and then you edit that thing, and then that you have to go back and edit the next thing again, and go back and forth and back and forth. Very much like it feels like a Rubik's Cube to me, because you move one side and it changes all the other sides, and they have to work in conjunction with each other, and you just got to get the balance just perfect to get all the colors aligned. So that's my analogy on the photo editing process. And what did I say? We want to, just with this left side, I think I went a little overboard on the added vignette. I'm just going to bring it back down just slightly. I was seeing it most in the dark. This is a little dark over here compared to this side. It's really, it gets pretty tough for me to see the slight difference, but I think it got just a little bit too dark. So I'm backing it off. And now that looks a lot healthier. A lot healthier. Oh, and I also wanted to make sure I knew that when I had adjusted, I added that first localized adjustment, and then later I realized that on one of those other adjustments that I had my noise reduction turned all the way up. So let's make sure that's all the way down. Check all these. Make sure we only have the adjustment for that area that we really want. Just check all those. Make sure I turned off the noise reduction on them, which I did. Good. And that's pretty good. Again, I'm definitely going to go over this. Is going to end up being printed. So I am going to go over this again. Fine tooth comb. Make sure I don't have any more dust spots that I missed. I see one right now. Let's just take care of it now, because I don't want to miss it. I don't want to forget and miss it. Oh no, that just made it so I can barely see him. Okay, so she's right here. This is it. Whoops. Okay, yeah, like I said, I'm gonna go through, because I don't want to, and that's such a tedious process, and I won't be able to rant about anything while I'm doing that, and so I want to have the full attention looking at that. But I'd say this is almost done. So I'm gonna open it up, or almost 100% done. I'm just gonna go over those fine tooth things. I might do a slight tweak to the color. Actually, looking at it, add just a tiny bit more magenta, I think. Just like 1 or 2. I might come back in and edit this later. I could open this as a smart object. Not going to do that, because I'll I'll probably come back in and do a little bit more. So the next thing we're going to do, I'm just going to put it on my square Instagram white backdrop that I always use. Oh, wait, hang on a second. Let's actually, I don't know, I'm not, never mind. I try to remain consistent in terms of like my signature placement and things like that. So I wanted to open an old image and make sure I was getting it right, but whatever. Like I said, I'm probably going to go back and have to do this again. So let's just do the whole process. So this is, we're taking our one layer here, just putting it onto our other layer. Oh, wait, no. First. I know that I want this to be 9 inches tall. That I do know is my, I definitely use 9-inch on the side, the longest side for all this, and it's 240 on my template. Just want to make sure I get that right. I think each time I've been like, oh, I got to make sure to change that template. Put it at 300 so I just don't have to change that. But do I do it? No. Okay, so longest side, 9 inches. This is my consistency. This is how I do every single frame. I try to make it so that they all have the same amount of space on the top or bottom or left or right side, depending on the photo's orientation. Dude, that is I like that shot, man. I like that shot. It's simple. I like simplicity. It's simple, but the colors are beautiful. I love the moon. Celestial bodies in the frame, just gorgeous. I love California, obviously. Represent. So Rancho Palos Verdes, awesome. And then the only thing we gotta do is throw a signature on there. Which again, I'm probably gonna go grab the signature that I already have built, just so that I have like 100% consistency in the font, which I'm pretty sure I just did times last one. I just did times. Font size and font itself. But that's fine. And then we decided, because I just want my handle to be my signature now, because that's how everybody's known. That is how you are known. Known by our handles, I guess. Looks a little big. Again, I am going to probably come back in and adjust this, so it's really not a big deal, but let's get it as close as possible. Use the arrows just to nudge it, to get it exactly where I want that to be. You probably can't tell, it's moving 1 pixel at a time. My name, my signature. Okay. Yeah, man, that looks pretty good. That's some tasty stuff. So let's save that. Save that as. Save that. So I even have this folder was even called Catalina. Again, this isn't definitely not a geography. Definitely not a geography stream. We're working with if we're talking Maya geography, I'm working on like a 3rd or 4th grade level, maybe geography wise. Not to be self-deprecating, that's not right. But I don't claim to be a geography pro. So anyway, this is Rancho Palos Verdes. Save. The full title will probably be like Rancho Palos Verdes with Moon or something like that. Again, titling, man, I went on a little rant earlier in the stream about titling. I'll go over that one more time. Super difficult to decide how to title a work. And you'll notice this is something I realized getting older and having tried to name so many pieces of work now, that you realize, I see so many photographers that have untitled work, or artists in general, just that the work is untitled. And I always, when I was a kid, I was like, why is it untitled? What does that even mean? Like, give me a title, yo. I can't just say, oh, did you like Untitled by this artist? And getting older and having done so many pieces of artwork myself and trying to come up with a title, you realize that, like, that it's just not easy, man. It's like, what's the first impression I want to make on somebody with the image? When you hear the name of the image, I want to say it makes a pretty big impact on you, and it can definitely change the view of the image. I mean, again, I was going to call it Catalina and Moon, completely different geographical location. So, like, I could have completely thrown people off in that regard, titling this wrong. But then also, just the mood that you set with the title can drastically affect how it's going to be presented to somebody, or at least that's how I feel about it. And so it's very hard to title things, and that's why, again, you're going to see a lot of people that just have Untitled as the name of one of their works, and that is, I totally understand why. Completely understand why. I have the same trouble deciding how I'm going to title things. So anyway, this one probably will be called something like Rancho Palos Verdes with Moon. If I really wanted to Ansel Adams reference this one, I'd say like Moonrise over Rancho Palos Verdes. But if you also remember from earlier in the stream, I don't know if this was a sunrise or a sunset. I could look that up, and then maybe I can title it correctly. But before I look up and can tell you if this is the moon rising or setting, which I'm sure some people can tell you just right off the bat, but I don't want to try to make any claims. I'm not going to title it until I figure that information out. So anyway, that's finished and ready to go. Post on social media, at least squared for Instagram. Which, this format, I don't frame everything in a square out of choice for creative choice. I mean, it's just so that on Instagram, on the thumbnail, you get the full image, and it has the border that I chose. I'm not letting Instagram crop it and choose what part of the image is shown on the thumbnails and things like that. So that's the reason it's in a square. And then the next thing we're going to do before we get off the stream, before we call it a night, is show you where we're going to get this printed. So again, I am going to order that print and have it made for one of my lucky patrons, gets a free print. And I'm going to be printing through a site called Contact LA. It's a photo lab in Los Angeles. I actually know one of the owners, one of the creators, is a family friend. Is a friend of ours, and they do great work, beautiful work. I'm going to be ordering a custom print through them. And what makes ordering through them special is that they're using an actual light jet print, or they're actually printing this with a light jet print, or making a light jet print. This isn't going to be a inkjet print. This is printed, as you can see. Let me just read you straight from their website, because they put it perfectly. Light jet prints are the industry standard for exhibition quality photographic printing, shown in galleries and museums around the world. A light jet is a digitally exposed chromogenic print, like prints made in the darkroom, except instead of using an enlarger, the light jet uses lasers. The result is a print precision and quality unattainable by any other means. Agree with every statement in there. Light jet prints, in my opinion, look a lot better than inkjet prints. So I always try to use a service that provides light jet printing. That has been harder and harder to find as more and more storefronts are actually closing down or losing business to people like, Costco prints photos, and they do it cheaper than anybody else. And I'm pretty sure they used to probably do light jet at Costco as well. I don't remember. I never got too much printed at Costco, but They definitely do inkjet printing, and it's cheaper, easier, convenient, whatever, but not the best quality in my opinion. Uh, so I'm definitely going to find places that do light jet printing. And when I learned about Contact LA, I was like, yep, that's it. I think the place I was using a small camera store here in my area that went out of business. So I kind of lost the local ability to do that. So it's good to find places like this. They also, Contact LA also rents out darkroom areas for you to print yourself if you actually want to do any kind of darkroom printing, if you want to get into that process. So I am going to be ordering from them. Again, it is a giveaway for one of my patrons, one of my lucky patrons. And I do plan maybe one day to do a whole video on this process. Maybe I hope to collaborate maybe even with them down there at the print house so that we could maybe do something together, but we'll see. That's something for a future episode, but I will be printing with their direct to print service, which means I'm just straight up uploading the digital file. They're loading that to their printer and hitting print. They're not going to do any kind of color maintenance at all. But you can also order, there's a professional printing service they offer where they will also do some color management for you and give you a proof so that you can, really get accurate prints made, beautiful colors, things like that. But I'm not going to be using that. I'm going to just use the direct to print service so that I don't have to worry about them tweaking the colors to their liking. I should have all these colors tweaked to my liking, so I should be good. So that's gonna be fun. I can't wait to get that print back for one of my peeps. And I really appreciate you guys hanging out. I'm really loving that shot. Gotta say. Don't mean to toot my own horn too much, but I'm happy with that shot. When you take photos, by the way, this. I'm displaying the natural beauty of our world here. This is like, it's so hard to take credit. It's like, what did I do? I mean, okay, yes, I took the photo, whatever. But I mean, in my opinion, it's like, you're really just displaying the natural splendor of our world and the beauty of it. And that's one of the things I aim to do, is just help people appreciate how beautiful things are and how beautiful our world is. So hopefully you get that out of it. Hopefully it makes you want to go out and shoot more. It's another thing one is always hoping to do with their work, or at least I hope to do, is just to get you guys out shooting, get you guys excited about photography or art in general, creating in general. Really important part of life is expression and creativity. So if I can motivate people to do that, it makes me really happy. So hopefully that you got some of that out of this, and hopefully you enjoyed watching the process go down. I really appreciate everyone being here. It's Thursday, so tomorrow I am definitely going to be doing some in-game Fallout photography. If anybody's around on Fridays, I'm trying to make that a regular segment. Oh, thanks, Paxmore. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Hope you have a great weekend. Remember, love yourself, love others, love life. Thank you guys very much for being here. I really appreciate it. Have a good rest of your night. Peace.